Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something really, really special. We are looking at the raw, unfiltered reflections of kids who recently went through an educational initiative simply called The Project. Now, you know how kids talk, right? Their thoughts just kind of bounce everywhere, from family to recess to school stuff, all in one single breath. But what happens if we actually take a step back, organize those scattered thoughts, and decode what truly matters to them? Well, that is exactly what we're doing today. Let's get right into it. We're kicking things off with this incredibly powerful anchor quote that literally sets the stakes for everything we're about to talk about. It is my right to live among my family and to feel safe. Think about that for a second. This isn't some adult policymaker talking. This is a child laying out their own baseline needs. It's bilingual in origin, but absolutely universal in its meaning. And what really hits home here is how they instantly pair family with safety, framing the whole thing not just as a wish, but explicitly as a right. It totally sets the stage. So to make sense of these voices, we've broken this down into pillars. Starting with pillar 1, the right to safety, which is really the absolute foundation of a child's well-being. Look at these 3 simple words, I learned rights. Buried in all the chatter about playing and family, a kid just proudly drops this statement. It's a massive indicator that the project didn't just spoon-feed them standard academics. It actually gave them the vocabulary to articulate their basic human needs and understand their own worth. Honestly, when a child can stand up and say, I learned rights, they stop being just a passenger in their environment. They become an active advocate for themselves. That is a huge shift. Moving right along to pillar 2, let's look at the family foundation, or what really acts as their protective village. When we mapped out all the people these kids talked about, it wasn't just a tiny, isolated nuclear unit. It's the whole shebang. Mom, dad, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters. It's this massive protective village wrapped around the child. One kid actually rattled off this entire list of relatives and then just beautifully summed it up by declaring, "This is a family." To them, that huge interconnected web of people is literally the definition of feeling secure. And within that village, kids are incredibly observant. It's fascinating how they categorize things. They explicitly link their brother to play, like, this is my brother playing with me. But the sister, she's tied to education. This is my sister going to school with me. It's like they naturally compartmentalize the 2 biggest engines of childhood, playing and learning. They organize their entire world around who helps them do what. But the real glue here is the emotional warmth attached to this network. They aren't just listing names on a family tree, they're recalling really specific cozy memories. We hear about an affectionate mother, and then there's this great ritual. My grandfather tells stories in the evening. The older generations aren't just physically in the house. They're the ones actively providing comfort and narrative at the end of a long day. That's how safety is actually built, isn't it? Literally story by story. All right, let's look at pillar 3. This is where things get vibrant. Colors, art, and play, and how these kids express pure joy. It is so fascinating to see how the children use specific colors to express what's going on in their inner worlds. In their reflections, they explicitly tie the color green to their feelings of safety and rights, and the color pink is directly connected to the right to play. They aren't just picking random crayons out of a box here. They're using green and pink as visual anchors to communicate these big, complex concepts like happiness and freedom. And what does that freedom actually look like on the ground? Well, this captures that crazy, creative energy of heading to the park with an uncle. First, there's the physical release. They play, they run around, but then it shifts into this gorgeous moment of artistic expression. They draw a heart, and then, as one child was super proud to point out, even the detailed tree. I just love that word, detailed. It tells you this kid feels safe enough to just stop, breathe, and focus on the tiny intricacies of nature. We don't even need to overanalyze this next part. I loved drawing, I loved the game. I mean, that is just the sound of childhood functioning exactly the way it's supposed to. The project made space for these creative outlets. It proves they understood a really basic truth. Before you can teach a kid science or a new language, you've got to let them be a kid first. You have to let them love the game. Which brings us to our 4th and final pillar, learning and empowerment and the real-world impact of the project. If you compile all the things they said, you get a really clear picture of what the project meant to the kids themselves. It wasn't some strict, sterile classroom. It was this joyful, holistic environment. They constantly mention having fun and being with friends. But right alongside all that fun, they were tackling serious stuff. Science, English, fundamental rights. Honestly, that is the absolute gold standard for early education right there. There's this incredible juxtaposition here that I want to highlight. On the one hand, you've got this simple, pure stuff, drawing hearts, running around, loving the colors pink and green. And on the exact same token, you have these incredibly heavy, profound takeaways, understanding the baseline need to be safe, grasping human rights, learning hard sciences. The sheer brilliance of their experience is that these two worlds didn't compete, they were happening simultaneously. Check out this awesome window into their bilingual discovery.
I learned English words. Hi, how are you?
You can practically hear the pride bursting out of that statement, can't you? It perfectly captures how hyped they were to master new phrases next to their native language. It seems like just a tiny interaction, a basic greeting, but for a kid, unlocking a second language is basically like getting a superpower. They were so pumped to share that specific win. So, pulling this all together, we can see the clear, tangible benefits these kids walked away with. They learned science, they learned English, they discovered their rights, they made friends, and they had a ton of fun doing it. It's concrete proof of the project's immense success. It didn't ditch joy for the sake of academics, and it didn't sacrifice learning just to play. It delivered on all fronts, mostly because it built a safe space first. Which brings us to our final takeaway, and I really want to leave you with this thought to chew on. If family safety, that whole village of aunts, uncles, and storytelling grandfathers, and joyful play, like running in parks and drawing detailed trees, if those are the true, non-negotiable bedrocks of learning, how can we make sure every single child gets this exact foundation? Because as these kids have so clearly shown us today, once they actually feel safe and free to just play, their capacity to learn about their rights, their world, and their own potential, it's absolutely limitless. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.